Today is Friday, June 10th, 2016. You're getting an inside look at the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the NASA Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas, where the Orbit 2 team is managing the systems and crew aboard the International Space Station. Leading the Orbit 2 team here today is Flight Director Emily Nilsson. Next to her, the voice between the ground and the crew up on the International Space Station, Capcom Kathy Bolt. Just under 260 statute miles above the Earth, now passing the east coast of New Zealand over the South Pacific Ocean, is the International Space Station and the Expedition 47 crew, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes at 17,000 miles per hour. The crew on board right now consists of Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Skripochka that you see on the left. From left to right, we have Oleg Skripochka, NASA astronaut Jeff Williams, Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin, European Space Agency astronaut Tim Peake, NASA astronaut and commander of the complex Tim Kopra, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Yuri Malenchenko. The crew wraps up this week, continuing preparations for a few dynamic events coming up next week and continuing to run some of the science experiments on board. Tim Kopra begins his departure prep, and Soyuz descent drills with crewmate Yuri Malenchenko. Again, he and Tim Peake and Yuri Malenchenko will be departing in about 8 days. Saturday, June 19th, they will be undocking the space station at about 12:52 a.m. Central Time, landing at 4:15 a.m. Central Time. Later today, he'll continue his training for a robotic arm that he'll be using to release the Cygnus cargo vehicle next Tuesday, June 14th. He will be the prime robotics arm operator, and Tim Peake that you see in the center frame right there will serve as backup for those operations again on June 14th. We'll be providing NASA TV coverage starting at 8 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, and Cygnus is scheduled for release at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. After that, it will continue to orbit the Earth for about 8 days before its destructive re-entry into the atmosphere. And in the meantime, it'll be conducting a series of experiments, including the Sapphire experiment, a fire experiment, learning how fire spreads in contained environments in space, and suppression methods. It'll be deploying a series of 5 CubeSats, and also before its fiery re-entry, it'll conduct the rebar experiment that analyzes the debris once it enters the Earth's atmosphere and burns up in the atmosphere. Astronaut Tim Peake conducted a number of science experiments today. Started with the RADI-N experiment. This measures specifically neuron radiation, which could be the cause of cataracts and cancer in space, as well as on Earth. Peake is currently scheduled to be gathering 8 bubble detectors that have been placed express rack in the Destiny module today. He took out some old hardware called the Payload Ethernet Hub Bridge and replaced it with an improved system called the Payload Ethernet Hub Gateway. He'll be continuing to work on this experiment for about the next 2 hours, where he'll wrap up those procedures that he's been working on throughout the course of the day. After that's complete, he'll take out some of the items that he's been working on for the multi-omics experiment. This experiment looks at the possible mechanisms that relate to dysfunction of the immune system during prolonged periods in space, and looks at the composition of microorganisms like bacteria and fungi in the gut, and some of the molecular products of metabolism and the whole immune system. We have a new space station story for you today. This one describes how the International Space Station is preparing astronauts to explore Mars in the near future, and it's narrated by veteran astronaut Reed Wiseman. He talks about the one-year mission, some of the studies that were conducted on the human body, and some of their that are being performed on the International Space Station right now, and how those studies could lead to a better understanding of how the body adapts to space for a mission like one to Mars. So let's take a look at that new space station story, charting the course.
Mars is our goal. There are so many scientific questions we want to answer there. We might even find the first evidence of life beyond Earth. We've already proven we can send a rover to Mars. But now we need to learn how to send people. Astronauts like me. A human mission to Mars and back could take 2.5 years. And we don't know for sure how people will hold up in weightlessness for that long. We need the people we send to Mars to be healthy enough to do work once they get there. And that's why the one-year mission of Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko on the International Space Station was so important. We started testing Scott and Misha a year before they launched and kept taking samples from them throughout on orbit to see how they reacted over time to being in weightlessness. Doctors checked them out at the landing site right out of their Soyuz spaceship, and they'll undergo additional tests for many more months on the ground. Then we've got to dig through all that data gathered to learn more. We're studying information about bone loss and muscle weakness and effects to their fine motor skills. We're studying the psychological effects of an extended spaceflight and how well they slept. We're looking to see if there was an impact to their vision. We're looking at everything to make sure the people we send to Mars will make the trip safely. On top of measuring the impacts of weightlessness to the human crew, we're using these International Space Station missions to learn about the hardware and technology we need for the trip. Things like how to refine our life support systems to make them more reliable, how to use robots to help humans do their work. We're even figuring out how to communicate effectively over these huge distances and how to make the human crew members more self-sufficient. The International Space Station is our testbed to work out the details of how to send people to these deep space destinations and bring them home safely. In the process, we're also promoting international cooperation and enabling commercial participation in spaceflight research, all while we generate benefits that are helpful to people on Earth today.
Many of the experiments conducted on the International Space Station throughout the week have to do specifically with studying the human body. Even today, some of the astronauts were looking into some of these studies. Jeff Williams was taking out some items for the multi-omics experiment that looks at the immune system and how that may change over time in space. And astronaut Tim Peake was working on the Skin B experiment that studies the skin and aging, which is expected to be accelerated in space. Throughout the week, astronauts like to spend some free moments whenever they get the chance to go to the cupola window or some of the other windows on the space station and use some of the handheld cameras they have on board to take beautiful pictures of the Earth and share them on social media. And we'll share a couple of those with you right now on Space Station Live. Start with a good morning from Tim Coper. You can follow him on Twitter at AstroTim. Hashtag good morning from the space station. Astronauts on board the space station typically see about 16 sunrises and sunsets per day, so they get several chances throughout the day to take pictures of both of them, sunrises and sunsets. Here's a picture from Tim Peake. You can follow him at Astro underscore Tim Peake. The Sokol spacesuit leak check that happened on Wednesday of this week. He, along with astronaut Tim Kopra and Yuri Malenchenko, checked for leaks of the Sokol spacesuit that you see right here, the one marked in white and blue, and also fitted their Canaveral space anti-garment suits that are underneath that Sokol suit. That trio will be landing again next Saturday, June 18th, to wrap up their Expedition 47 mission. Jeff Williams took a couple pictures of some mountains in the state of Washington. You can follow him at Astro underscore Jeff, an oblique view of Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helen, volcanic mountains in the state of Washington. Mount Rainier is the highest mountain in the state of Washington and the highest mountain in the Cascade Range of the Pacific Northwest. This range extends from southern British Columbia through Washington and Oregon down to northern California. It's the highest mountain, reaching 14,410 feet tall, or 4,392 meters. Mount St. Helen is another active volcano, as well as Mount Rainier, also in the Cascade Range, also in Washington, towering at 8,363 feet, or 2,549 meters. Williams likes to take several photos of some of the features of Earth and stitch them together for panoramas. This one's of Montreal, Canada. If you follow his both his Twitter and Facebook, on Twitter he's at Astro underscore Jeff. On Facebook he's NASA astronaut Jeff Williams, both verified accounts. You'll be able to see this image as well as a video clip that kind of zooms in to these panoramic images and gets you a closer look at some of the details of Montreal, Canada, as well as various other pictures that Williams has stitched together. Tim Kopra took this picture of Monaco in Nice, France. This is on the Mediterranean, close to the border of Italy. He likes to share pictures of various cities and uses hashtag cities from space, very popular, and share them with folks from around the globe. We'll end the tweets with a nice sunset, time for a cup of tea, and a sunset good night Earth from astronaut Tim Peake. Again, they get views like this every 16 times a day, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. The International Space Station offers a unique perspective of the Earth, not just for the astronauts, but for life-saving tools. A special camera on the International Space Station called HICO has the ability to show water quality levels in areas that report high levels of bacteria in their water sources. So let's take a look at this Benefits for Humanity video that shows how the International Space Station aids the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to monitor the water quality with an eye on the tide.
Carroll Township's a very rural area in northern Ohio, right on Lake Erie. Lake Erie's always been very important to Carroll Township and its residents. We use it for drinking water, we treat it, and it's really our livelihood.
In Lake Erie, for what unknown reason, suddenly the toxin level spiked, and that got through the treatment system.
It was indicated to me that it is pretty dangerous.
Cyanotoxins can cause skin rashes,
Headaches,
nausea,
vomiting, stomach problems,
nervous system problems,
liver damage.
to death.
We sampled and we had about 2.5 times the limit from the World Health Organization. The second sample was approximately 3.5 times. Our plant wasn't set up to handle what was coming in from Lake Erie. One of my biggest worries was actually hurting someone or even worse. So we shut it off right away, shut everything off. We had a very close call that day. The last thing you want to do is produce an unsafe water and allow your people to drink it. What we need is a better way to track and predict these cyanobacteria entries from our source water so that we can make sure that this never happens again.
A lot of times we'll find out after the fact that there's a problem with cyanobacteria in the water because the bloom's already occurred. We either get results of sick animals or sick people. We need a paradigm shift. We need to go from being constantly reactive to these blooms to having a capability that allows us to become proactive. And the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has been very encouraging of allowing for some high-risk, high-reward projects. And that allowed us to think outside the box, way outside the box. We've been fortunate enough to make use of a sensor on the International Space Station called HICO, which stands for the Hyperspectral Imager for the Coastal Ocean.
HICO consists of two instruments. One is a camera, and the second instrument is a spectrophotometer, which actually gives us the spectrum of light leaving that water.
The camera on a cell phone, for example, contains about 3 bands of data in a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel.
HICO gathers light from the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet parts of the spectrum. So using this technology, we're able to now detect those water quality parameters such as water clarity, what the phytoplankton concentration is in your water, how much light is being absorbed in your water, as well as what's the distribution of cyanobacteria in those waters, and does that concentration pose a health hazard?
So what this means is instead of waiting for someone to report that there's a problem with cyanobacteria bloom, we can monitor these water bodies from space
and get information that we can rapidly get out to the water quality managers through a smartphone application that we've developed.
So the app allows you to drop a pinpoint, and that pin can be placed in an area where a drinking water treatment plant may have an intake, and see what the current water quality conditions were. Each user gets that information near real time, so they can make judgment calls on whether they have to respond or take action.
Having the HICO on the International Space Station has been the ideal test bed for our research.
This is an amazing partnership. The Naval Research Laboratory had HICO on NASA's International Space Station. As HICO acquired a scene, it was transferred to the Naval Research Laboratory. And then the Environmental Protection Agency was able to do the analysis and the validation to send this information out through a prototype mobile application. Yes, this technology will reduce costs and provide near real-time information. But the big goal here is protecting humans. And if we can reduce exposures both to humans and even animals, then we've achieved our goal.
Many satellites just like that are launched from the International Space Station on a regular basis. Just last week, 16 Dove satellites that are Earth imaging satellites were released from the station using the CubeSat deployer from the Japanese module's airlock. And next Tuesday, the Cygnus cargo vehicle, after departing the station and orbiting the Earth for an additional 8 days before re-entry, CubeSats that are part of a larger constellation of satellite imagers called Lemur satellites. Next week we have a lot of dynamic activities going on throughout the week. It all starts on Tuesday with the release of the orbital ATK Cygnus cargo vehicle from the International Space Station on Tuesday, June 14th. This will start coverage at 8 a.m. Central Time to prepare for a release at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. On Friday, June 17th, we'll be broadcasting a change of command ceremony. Tim Cooper will be handing over command of the International Space Station to NASA astronaut Jeff Williams, and that'll occur at 8:15 a.m. Central Time. Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko will be departing the International Space Station on Saturday, June 18th. We'll start undocking coverage at 12:45 a.m. Central Time for a 12:52 a.m. Central Time undocking. The Soyuz will land in Kazakhstan at 4:15 a.m. Central Time, bringing our astronauts back home. Astronauts Jeff Williams, Oleg Skripochka, and Alexei Ovchinin won't be in space alone for very long. The launch of the Expedition 4849 crew, Kate Rubins, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Takuya Onishi, are scheduled to launch July 7th. You can continue to follow updates on the International Space Station pages of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and get blogates from our International Space Station blog. Any question you'd like to ask, just ask it using the hashtag AskNASA on any of our social media platforms. Today is Friday, June 10th, and that's it for this week. This is Mission Control, Houston.
excited to be here today as a milestone day. We're back home to what we consider our home port after a bit of a hiatus, and we're getting ready to, as you can see, the Cygnus vehicle has its initial load of cargo, mated, the 2 parts have been mated, and we're on the path to a successful launch. The Antares vehicle, as I'm sure you probably heard out here, had its very successful engine test last week, I guess, and all the data so far looks good. So we're encouraged that we are getting both vehicles ready to fly, and as Robin said, we're looking at our July date, and we'll be ready whenever the ISS can take us. Just to let you know, my name is Dan Toddy. I'm a former astronaut, but I'm also a former orbital employee even before I became an astronaut. So Dex considers Rockville, Maryland his hometown, which is very close to our headquarters in Dulles, Virginia. And he was stationed, did test pilot school and was stationed out here at Canaveral. So I'm sure he spent a lot of time in our airspace. And right now, the SS husband is on orbit on the space station right now. We'll depart from the space station in about a week. But we really enjoy our time here at Wallops, and we're trying to promote and make people aware that this is a real spaceport, and this is another space coast that we have here in the nation. So we're really thrilled to be back here. No, so the ECM is actually been
TMJ TV. How do you hear me?
Hello, Charles. Jeff here, and I have you loud and clear.
Well, good morning, Jeff Williams from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How are we looking from space?
Well, it's been a few days since I've seen Wisconsin, since we've passed over in the daytime, but last pass, you looked great. It was a late spring morning, and the weather was clear. I don't know how it is now. How is it now?
It's actually a beautiful morning in Wisconsin. I want to ask you, on Monday, you made history by going inside the world's first inflatable living room in space. I think they officially call it the beam. It looked like the ultimate tent. What is it, and why is it important to the future of space travel?
Make anything illogical up and down. The challenges, of course, come with losing things very easily. Like you said, I can let go of this microphone and continue talking, but it can drift away, and it's soon out of sight. And I can tell you, over the length of time that I've been here, the multiple flights, I've lost many things. Thankfully, you eventually find them. They usually drift into an inlet filter in the ventilation system, and they're caught by a filter, and that's where we usually go look for lost items, at least the first place we look.
That sounds very cool. Give me a sense. Are you allowed to bring any personal items from home? And if so, did you bring anything from Wisconsin?
We do bring some personal items. I bring, of course, photographs of family and a few close friends, little trinket kind of things. I've brought jewelry up here for my wife and my daughters-in-law and other things like that. I brought flags, U.S. flags, Wisconsin flags, U.S. Army flags. I spent my whole career in the Army. So things like that. It's not a whole lot. We're limited to 1.5 kilograms on the Soyuz. Soyuz, as you probably know, is very small, so we don't have a lot of room to put things. So logically, it limits us like that.
Jeff, we have people on Facebook listening to this right now. We had a question from Meredith who wants to know, how close to the moon are you?
Well, let's see. We're not any closer to the moon than you are, really. We orbit the Earth, and our altitude above the Earth is roughly 250 miles. And as I recall, the moon is something like 240,000 miles away. I might have that number wrong, but that's what my memory recalls at the moment. So it's orders of magnitude beyond where we are right now. We're very close to the Earth. We can go to the window. We can see the entire globe, but you're very close. You can see the details on the Earth. And of course, I've sent down, and we've all sent down much photography showing the details of the Earth. So really, not any closer than you are.
We have about 30 seconds left. Give me a sense of that spectacular view of Mother Earth that you see every day. And the sheer beauty must be amazing, but is it also a spiritual experience for you?
Oh, it's incredibly moving to be able to view the part of God's creation we call Earth, which is our home, and to see that it is habitable, that it is inhabited. You see all kinds of details, like I said, natural features as well as man-made features. So I spent a lot of time in the window with things like this, a camera, trying to capture that view for the people on Earth, to be able to virtually bring everybody to this orbital outpost we call the International Space Station.
Jeff Williams, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. Safe travels, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to be with you today.
Tim, this is Dallas. How do you hear me from the Cheltenham Science Festival?
Hello to Dallas and hello to everybody at the Cheltenham Science Festival. It's great to be talking to you this afternoon. I hear you loud and clear.
Way! Nice round of applause. Oh, no! Tim, we just lost you momentarily, but you're back now. Thank you so much from the Times Cheltenham Science Festival. We are here in the Space Dome. And we're very, very excited to be talking to you now. We've got a big group of kids from the Cirencester Kings Hill School and some journalists. How are you? How are you feeling? Are you looking forward to coming home, first of all?
Yes, I'm doing great, thanks. It's been a fantastic 6 months up here, really remarkable, incredible experience. And yes, of course, I'm looking forward to coming home, looking forward to seeing my friends and my family, but I am going to miss this place.
That's fantastic. I'm going to start off with the Cirencester Kings Hill School. I want to introduce you to Hannah Slack, who's in Year 10, and she's got a fantastic question for you to get the ball rolling, and then we'll talk to the press after that. So I'm going to hand you to Hannah now, Tim.
Hi, my question is, do you think it will be hard to adapt to life back on Earth after being in space for so long?
Hi, Hannah. That's a good question to ask and one that I've been paying particular attention to recently. But yes, it is going to be quite tricky to adapt. It's probably going to take me at least 2 or 3 days before I feel well, and it'll take me several months before my body fully recovers in terms of bone density. And also it'll be interesting to see if there's been any lasting changes, for example, to eyesight, etc. But generally speaking, after about 2 or 3 days, I should be fairly comfortable back on Earth.
Thank you very much. Tim, I'm going to hand you over to some journalists now. I know we've got a very, very short amount of time, so I'm not going to witter on. I'm going to hand over to the journalists now. We're going to go round the room. So here's question number one for you.
Tim, it's Thomas Moore from Sky News. Hello. Now, tell me, I'm sure you're very well prepared for the physical rigors of re-entry, but what about the psychological, the emotional impact of coming home back to Earth and seeing friends and family and other human beings for the first time in 6 months?
Yes, it's a good question to ask. I think I'm ready for it, and we have, good contact up here in the space station, of course, on a daily basis with mission control all over the world, and our families too, who I'm able to call. So that has helped, that keeping in connection with planet Earth and with everybody back on Earth. But I'm certainly looking forward to coming back and seeing friends and family again, and I don't think it will be too hard to adjust to that.
Hi, Tim. This is Tom Whipple from The Times. My question is, the fact that you're in space at all represents a big change in UK space policy. Until you came along, we decided that it wasn't worthwhile scientifically, but that changed. So my question is, as you reach the end of your trip, have you been worthwhile?
It's a very important question to ask, and it's certainly one that I'm sure people will be paying a lot of attention to and researching into. From my personal perspective, of course, I think this has been an exceptionally worthwhile endeavour, and it's not just about this one mission. This is about the UK becoming involved in human spaceflight, hopefully for the foreseeable future, not just for our science community, not just for our industry, but also for the kids and for education and outreach, and to try to inspire people to look at science and look at space in a different way. Space is going to play an ever increasingly important role in our lives, and if the UK is not in the forefront of that, then we're missing out, quite simply. So I certainly think this mission has been worthwhile.
Hi Tim, it's Phil Mackey from BBC Radio 5 Live. We've been asking 5 Live listeners today whether or not they had questions for you. We had lots of interesting ones, lots of which you probably wouldn't want to have heard. Here's one from 5 Live listener Adam in Leon C, and he asks, what have you learned about Earth in the time that you've been off it?
Well, I've learned so much about Earth just in terms of being able to see it changing over 6 months, and really most of it is about how beautiful the planet is, how thin and fragile the atmosphere is, how remarkable the weather systems are that globally affect the planet. The auroras, certainly during the winter, the aurora was absolutely magnificent. And even now going into summer, we have little surprises like noctilucent clouds coming up in June. So honestly, every time I go to the cupola window and look outside, I can normally find something new that I haven't seen before, and that has been what's been most remarkable about the planet.
Hi Tim, Ken Goodwin from ITV West Country. We've got lots of young people here. What do you think has been the result of your trip on the young people that you've engaged with on social media and that you've managed to talk to and answer questions for?
Well, part of this mission before I launched was to try and engage with as many people as possible and to try and share the experience as much as possible. It's already been mentioned that it's been, a long time since the UK actually enjoyed having a British astronaut, Helen Sharman, 25 years ago, and so these opportunities don't come around very often, and it's important that we make the most of them. And part of that is to reach out to our young generation and try and let them share the mission, to try and get them excited about science and excited about space. And I I've had such a brilliant support team on the ground who've run the educational outreach program, and we've had so many competitions in a vast array of different spheres, from things like rocket seeds to space dinners to the AstroPi computer, fit and healthy exercise like Mission X and Space to Earth. The list just goes on, and I think we've reached over 1 million children across the UK, which is truly remarkable. And so I hope that certainly will help to have an impact in inspiring our future scientists and engineers.
Tim, this is David Allard from BBC South Today. Our viewers have loved seeing the photos you've tweeted of the weather along the south coast, of the sunshine, of the storms. But what do you miss most about the weather on Earth?
You know, this is going to sound truly remarkable, but I most miss the rain. And I think perhaps that's because I haven't had a shower for 6 months. But the feeling of nice cold drizzle on my face right now actually sounds blissful, which most people in the UK would probably find quite remarkable.
This is Jo Darrant from BBC Radio Gloucestershire. What are you looking forward to most about coming back home?
Well, it stands with that reason that the thing I'm looking forward to most is seeing my family again. But apart from that, I think it's just enjoying planet Earth in terms of the outdoors. I love the outdoors. I'm cycling, hiking, climbing, camping at any opportunity I can get. And having lived now in this space station, which is an incredible place to live, it's truly, groundbreaking up here, what we're doing. But having spent 6 months up here, I'm really looking forward to some fresh air and just getting outdoors and enjoying planet Earth.
Hi Tim, it's Charlotte Gay here from Heart Radio. Bit of a sports question. What do you reckon of England winning Euro 2016? And if not England, who do you think will win?
Well, I'm rooting for England, of course, for Euro 2016. So I'm gonna stick with that answer, and of course I look forward to watching it when I get back.
Hi Tim, it's Tim Cooper here from the British Forces Broadcasting Service, Forces TV. You've been in space. What are you planning to do now? Are you thinking of reinvigorating your reserve career with the British Army Reserves? And do you hope to inspire other soldiers, sailors and airmen to ditch their uniforms and don the spacesuit?
Well, no, of course, I'm a full-time employee of the European Space Agency, and that's exactly what I'll go back and do is to continue to represent the UK as a British astronaut within ESA. And there's an awful lot going on back at the European Space Agency at the moment. Just my class of shenanigans, the class of 2009. Already Alex Gerst has been reassigned to a mission in 2019. He'll be back on the space station for the second time. The space station has a life out to 2024, maybe even a bit beyond that, and we're already very actively looking at future missions to the moon, a stepping stone onto Mars. And so there's an awful lot of work to be done back in the European Space Agency. And sorry, I missed the second part of your question there about forces.
Just keen to know, Tim, if you'd like to inspire other forces personnel to do what you've done.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that what we're doing is very important. We've got some very difficult and challenging missions coming up in the future, and the space sector needs as many talented professional people as it can. So it's certainly a route that I would encourage people to follow, from whether they come from a military background or any background whatsoever.
Hi, Tim. It's John Oldham here from Radio Winchcombe. Let me just ask you, Tim, you've had this exciting 6 months. You're now going to come down to the ground. Isn't life going to have a bit of deja vu?
No, I don't think so. There's going to be an awful lot to do, certainly over the next year, in terms of debriefing and, of course, the medical tests. So much of the experiments and the science that we've done up here is actually on my own body. So those experiments will continue for the next year. And as I've mentioned, we've got a very active program of human spaceflight within the European Space Agency. So the important thing is to try and use the information that I've gained during this 6-month mission in terms of improving how we do operations on board the space station, and looking forward to how we can improve future missions as well.
Tim, hi, it's Dallas again. I just had a quick question. I was there for your launch way back in December, and time has gone extremely quickly. I still have a bag of laundry, which I haven't unpacked, from Baikonur. And when I realized that you were coming back, I'm like, it can't be 6 months already. Has time flown for you, too?
You know, yes, time is a funny thing, and it has gone very quickly. But then again, sometimes when I think back to, for example, when Tim Copra and Scott Kelly did that first spacewalk, and that was only 6 days into the mission, that does seem like a long time ago. When I think I celebrated Christmas and New Year up here on board the space station, again, it feels like a long time. And I've just been fortunate, really, that we've had so many exciting and interesting events during this 6-month mission, and they've been nicely paced out. So throughout the mission, there's always been something really good to look forward to. And that's really life on board the space station. It's an incredibly exciting place to work.
Talking of Christmas, this is Dallas still here. I have a Christmas question for you from somebody from the school. If you just want to introduce yourself and say your question to Tim.
Hi, this is Maisie, and I'd like to know, what did you get for Christmas?
Hi, Maisie. Well, I think the greatest present I got for Christmas was finding out that I was going to do a spacewalk, and really, I don't think you can top that. But my next big present this year, of course, is going to be hopefully getting back safely a week on Saturday and seeing my family again.
Hi, my name is Roxy. What advice would you give to someone like me to become an astronomer?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that question. I understood it was something to do with becoming an astronomer.
Yes, this is Dallas here. The question was, any advice for somebody who would like to become an astronomer?
Well, do you know, I mean, you've obviously got an interest in astronomy, and the first thing is just to do what I'm sure you're doing and enjoying as a hobby, looking up at the stars, trying to find great places to go and view the stars where there isn't too much light pollution, and just recording and documenting what you're doing, enjoying that. And if you're passionate about things, you'll tend to be very good at them. And that's certainly something that I enjoyed as a youngster as well, was a little bit of an astronomy and also aviation. They were two things I was very interested in, and so I would just encourage anybody who's interested in that to really continue what you're good at and be passionate about it.
Hello again, Tim. It's Phil Mackey again from Radio 5 Live. I just wondered what you've learned about yourself while you've been up there.
That's a good question. I haven't really reflected on that too much, and I don't really think that I have probably learnt an awful lot about myself that stands out. Maybe when I come back down and I'll reflect on this mission, I'll have time to think about everything that's gone on. I'll be able to kind of answer that a bit more fully. But we're honestly so busy up here, we just take every day as it comes. Obviously, we're working in quite a high-pressure environment, a stressful environment, but then that's something I was used to anyway in the military. Spent 16 years as a military pilot, and so I think after a career such as that, it's hard to learn new things about yourself.
Hi Tim, this is Tom Whipple from the Times again. What are your views on Brexit?
Well, you know, my views on Brexit are personal views, and you know, I don't feel the need to impart them on anybody else. But what I'd like to say, in terms of cooperation and partnership, of course, is just the fact that I'm here floating in the most incredible achievement of not just European cooperation, but international cooperation. And this space station would not exist if it wasn't for all of the international partners and what they have managed to achieve despite their political differences throughout the years. And hopefully that will continue into the future of space exploration as well.
Tim, it's Thomas Moore from Sky News again. Over the last 6 months, almost every minute has been accounted for by the space agencies. Every movement has been closely observed by cameras on board the ISS. How much are you looking forward to a bit of peace and quiet? It must have felt like you were living in the Big Brother house.
Yes, I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there, Thomas. I'm certainly looking forward to just having some nice time with my family, some private time, and some peace and quiet. Peace and quiet will probably still be quite hard to come by in the next couple of months. There's so much to do in the post-flight period, but it's certainly something I'm looking forward to.
Ken Goodwin from ITV West Country. Looking back over the last 6 months, what's been the defining moment when you looked out of the window and said, I've got the best job in the world?
There was one moment on the spacewalk when Tim Coper and myself were waiting to install an electrical component, and we had to wait for the sun to set because, of course, the sun striking the solar rays would have been dangerous for us to have changed out the electrical component. And Mission Control in Houston basically told us that we had about 10 minutes to hang out, take photographs, and wait for the sun to set. And that is unheard of on a spacewalk, where normally every minute is accounted for. So that was truly incredible, just to be able to explore, you know, that part of the space station and look down on planet Earth, and also look behind me and look out into the darkness and the vastness of space whilst outside the space station. I think that really is a moment I will cherish forever.